Did you yell America when you hit the accelerator?
Oh, no.
And now, your favorite two blue-collar nobodies to give you their quiet perspective, Starlord and Joey.
You can't handle the truth!
Welcome back, YouTubers, to the Quiet Perspective. This is Staff Sergeant Starlord along with Civilian Joey.
What's going on?
Today, I am going to review, and Joey's going to just be my feedback here, the movie Midway. Just came out this Veterans Day weekend, and I'm going to briefly review the movie. This episode is actually more about my anger and disdain for people who want to complain about stuff they don't know what they're talking about. I want to say right off the bat, I don't care if you have a different opinion than me, or if you didn't like something, that's fine. But when you go out of your way to justify stuff just to earn that participation trophy and be loud on the internet, you're wrong, you're an asshole, and you should be put down like a dog.
Goddamn. All right.
I'm pretty heated about it.
I can tell.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a brief review of the movie Midway, and then I'm going to give you a review of reviews, because I am angry, irate. I wanted to sit there and scream and yell when I started reading some of the reviews that were coming out about this movie. And right off the bat, I want to say I don't have a problem with anybody who doesn't like something, as long as they are coming from a common sense perspective. But when I feel like you're just picking a side of an argument and then trying to find things to justify it, that's not how you review a movie. That's not how you review anything. We saw a lot of that with The Last Jedi when it came out. So I'm going to give you a spoiler-ish free spoiler review. I don't know how to do it because it's history. We all know how it ends. The movie, to me, was fantastic. 9.5, 10 out of 10. I give it a 10 out of 10. The movie was incredible. It told the story of Midway, which, if you're not familiar with, was a turning point in the Pacific War and World War II, where we as Americans, we were just attacked at Pearl Harbor. Half of our fleet was decimated. The Japanese were coming. We didn't know where, and we had to figure that out and combat that. It was a war of information. It was an intelligence war, and we happened to figure it out, make good decisions, and meet them at Midway Island, which was just a nothing island, maybe like a 3x3 mile. I mean, it's small. It held an airfield on it,
Which made it a huge strategic position, right?
Exactly. If the Japanese had taken Midway, they could set up shop there and then just start attacking us on the West Coast, California, and so forth. And that's what would have happened. But we were able to get in position and take out their carriers at the Battle of Midway. It was a how do I say it? It was a very significant battle. It was a violent battle, high cost, with high reward.
It was pretty much we lose this and we're gonna be invaded.
We'd be speaking
Right.
Japanese, possibly. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like do or die. It was pretty much the D-Day of the Pacific battle.
Yeah.
The Pacific Theater.
So the movie starts off at Pearl Harbor. It shows a brief attack on Pearl Harbor, which was beautiful and sad. And then it shows a small retaliation, my favorite part of the movie, which was the Doolittle raid. I thought was fantastic. James Doolittle got 17 B-25s, put them on the USS Hornet, launched them off of the Hornet, and attacked Japan. This was a huge feat. These are Army bombers put onto a Navy aircraft carrier.
Yeah, that was. I think I remember seeing something about that specifically. The fact that they launched those planes off that, didn't they have to rig something? Because those carriers weren't near long enough for that to even work. Really, right?
They trained for 2 months in order to get the distance there, because you're not those planes weren't designed to take off on that distance.
Yeah.
And when they even had to end up taking off early, so they had to take all their guns off the planes, drop all their fuel, drop any extra equipment. I'm talking people had to pee before they got on the plane to drop weight.
Yeah, it was almost it was almost like a one-way trip, almost.
Well, it was
in
it was
a sense.
mission. They all knew it. James Doolittle knew it. And just real quick fact, James Doolittle, after crashing his plane in China, there's a famous picture of him actually sitting on the plane of his the wing of his plane with his head in his hands. He thought he was going to get court-martialed when he got back because he thought he was a complete failure. He actually ended up getting the Medal of Honor and went on to fly more combat missions in World War II. Hence the reason why he's my hero. This man was incredible. Moving forward, and then it goes into the Battle of Midway. The Japanese try to attack. We defend. We win. Game over. So, and the movie itself actually focuses on the battle itself. That's the main character, but it actually gives us some intimate stories of some very specific pilots, which is what differentiates this movie from the original Midway movie in the 70s. The original Midway movie in the 70s was more of a documentary type cinematic movie. It was live action, or not live action, but it was action, but it was very, very rooted in history. It gave you dates, it would give you names, all kinds of stuff. So this movie is a good balance between that and a Hollywood blockbuster. It's very
Right.
historically accurate. And of course, they cut some of that down for the sake of being interesting and not boring. And then they ramped up a little bit of the cinematics, So this movie was a great balance. That's my review on the movie. I think it was great. I think it was a great tribute to our fighting men and women in World War II, the Battle of Midway, the Navy. I highly recommend you go see this movie. That being said, now is my time to review the assholes that are reviewing the movie who really pissed me off with some of their comments. Again, I don't have a problem if you didn't like the movie. That's fine, but you better not like it for an actual reason and not be just looking for some attention. So I was on Internet Movie Database. The movie has a 6.4 out of 10 stars right now, which pisses me off. So I screenshotted some of these comments. I don't want to talk about them and just kind of break them down for you. Ryan Darish gave it a 5 out of 10 and says the movie is repetitive and drawn out. This film is your standard cookie-cutter war flick with too many repetitive action sequences that all look the same after a while.
What?
Joey, you haven't even seen the movie, but I want you to respond to that.
Well, okay. It's a military movie based on a real battle in a real location. And not to mention, being the Pacific Theater, this was a naval battle with aerial combat. There's not a whole lot you can change to make it not repetitive. I mean, you've only got so many different kinds of planes. You've got so many different kinds of boats. I mean, this isn't a World War II epic where you're going from location to location where you can have a lot of variety. So I don't even know what do you, I don't know if this person didn't know what Midway was and just went to see it because it was a military movie maybe, and then found out, I don't know. That's kind of short-sighted.
But at the end of the movie, they do scroll up some text and tell you about the actual pilots, the battle, and everything like that. So it clarifies that it's a true story. So I don't understand where this dude's coming from. What do you want us to do? Throw in an alien and a sea monster?
Yeah,
This is exactly what happened. This is a telling of the truth.
Yeah, were they expecting like something out of Battleship? I mean,
I'll give you a review later. Somebody actually thought it was like Battleship.
oh God.
Here's another one. Gave it a 5 out of 10 from Batzella. But this review, I can see his point. Not even though I disagree with it, I can accept it. He says decent movie ruined by bad acting.
And that's subjective.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. He didn't like the acting. That's why he gave it 5 stars. Okay, that makes sense. That's a legitimate gripe and complaint. Here's another one from a guy named Invectors. Gave it a 2 out of 10 and says, awful track on the real history and disrespectful of Navy aviators. And I will point this out at the bottom of his review. It said, I got the stories firsthand. I am a Navy pilot, and the false carrier landings mock the skill of a naval aviation. So he's claiming to be a naval aviator, and he's going out on this thing saying it's disrespectful of naval aviators.
Was he a naval aviator during World War II?
I seriously doubt it. Not if he's using the internet.
I honestly, yeah, I don't know. With there's a lot of people on the internet that claim to be Delta Force and Navy SEALs and stuff like that too, just to try to make a point. But I'm not saying the guy's not was an actual pilot, but I
He very
take
well
comments
could have
like that
been.
with a
I don't
grain
know.
of salt.
He very well could. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, but I'm still going to say this seems like a guy who wants to look special and feel special. Let's say you were an aviator. Let's say you did talk to these people. Okay, I talked to Richard Cole. And this is James Doolittle, Jimmy Doolittle's co-pilot. And this isn't the kind of man who's going to go watch a movie about the Doolittle raid or even watch Pearl Harbor and felt disrespected. He's being honored in a place of honor. These people would not have been disrespected by what was portrayed in this movie. It didn't make them look like dumbasses. It didn't disrespect them. This movie was an homage to them. This was a beautiful movie that told just an inkling of a true story about them and how they felt. Hollywood did its best, and I sort of think you were just trying to tout your own accomplishments and want to look like you're special. This movie was not disrespectful to aviators or anybody. It wasn't even disrespectful to the Japanese. In fact, I didn't see it, but I guess I read later. The movie was dedicated to the fighting men and women of the Japanese and the Americans. And there's a little review about that. But to say that it's an awful track on real history, again, absolutely not. It got the main tent poles, and then it focused in on two specific pilots and gave you their true stories, and then added a little bit of flair in there. So, in vectors, 2 out of 10. I gotta say, naval aviator or not, I think you're just an asshole.
Well, you know what? I kind of now that I think about it, that guy may actually have been a pilot, and like you're saying, that's one of those comments. He just said that just so he could say, "I'm a pilot. I'm a pilot."
What about me? What about me?
Yeah, look at me. It's like,
Yeah.
come on, dude.
Here's one I take great exception to. 4 stars out of 10. Michael Bay's Pearl Harbor was a masterpiece after all.
Now, I'm a fan of that movie. I do like Pearl Harbor, but the problem I had with Pearl Harbor was all the love story part, the extra fluff that went with it. I wanted to watch Pearl Harbor because I'm a military history fan.
No,
I guess you would
yeah.
call. I'm not even going to call myself a history buff, but I'm a fan of movies, military movies, and that had the chick flick angle to it that I don't, and I'm sure that's because they wanted to draw in women, know. I could have done without that. Masterpiece, no. Good movie, yeah.
Pearl Harbor was a cinema movie, a cinematic movie. It was not a history movie. It was a cinematic movie that had history thrown into it. I watched that movie and I like Pearl Harbor too. I still watch it to this day. I think the visuals are neat. They're cool. I love watching the B-25, another reincarnation of the Doolittle raid, even though they cast the worst possible person to be Doolittle. And it was a bad portrayal, but it's still a fun movie to watch.
Yeah.
I watched it knowing half of that story going into. I could just, without knowing history, what was false and what wasn't. That's the kind of movie that was. That is not what we got out of Midway. The guy also wrote, at least Pearl Harbor had panache. Midway is a soulless experience that lacks even the faintest flicker of visual flair. Now, if you've even seen the trailer, I don't understand this comment. Visual flair, lack of, are you serious? This movie is CGI riddled because it has to be, and not in a bad way. But it's a battle. It's an ongoing battle, never-ending action. How is it lacking visual flair? What are you talking about?
Well,
I mean, did you want lasers installed to the guns? I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't know. I think somebody like that maybe didn't understand what Midway was or doesn't have a handle on World War II in general. I mean, I don't know what people like that expect. That's what happened. What more do you want? And see, that right there, that's 2 comments, that one and the last one, that contradict each other too. It's 2 people complaining about the movie that wouldn't agree with each other.
Yeah.
The one guy is the pilot guy was complaining about that it was inaccurate and wants it more realistic. What does this other guy want? He wants more whatever, I don't know, which would be unrealistic.
I think the general theme you're going to see here is a complete lack of objectivity in this movie. As far as the reviews, that's what I mean. These reviews, complete lack of objectivity. Here's that one I was talking about. I just mentioned before. Christy Korea gives it 4 out of 10, and I guess this is the reason why. You wouldn't dedicate a movie to the Nazi soldiers, so why would you dedicate it to the Japanese soldiers? So I guess they did put a dedication at the end of it to the Japanese and the American soldiers during the battle. Before I say anything, Joey, what's your response to that? I'm curious.
Well, I mean, for one thing, the Nazis don't exist anymore, not in an official capacity.
Ooh, that's a very good point.
Japan does, and they're allies of ours now. So we went to war.
I didn't even think about it that way. That's a good point.
Well, I mean, and it's this as far as Japan and the United States now. World War II was okay. We fought. A lot of people died on both sides. It was terrible. They initiated it, and we responded. And it's kind of like a MMA fight. You beat the shit out of each other. Somebody wins, somebody loses. You get up, and it's over, and you shake hands. And there's civility now. Nazi Germany, you can't really say that Nazi Germany, us fighting the Nazis, is the same as us fighting Japan, even though they were on the same, the other side with Nazi Germany in World War II. I don't think you're comparing apples and oranges at that point.
Interesting. That's a good point of view. I hadn't even thought about it like that. They went on to write that they were just as bad, if not worse, than the Nazis on so many levels, and that is accurate. The Japanese were bad.
Yeah,
but
I mean, some of the atrocities they committed during World War II. Holy crap! Some of the stuff they were doing. I'm not justifying what they did. I'm just saying right now in 2019, we have a relationship with Japan. Like I said, we're not like trying to be Japan, but there's civility there, and we wouldn't. In other words, if Nazi Germany still existed, we'd still be fighting them.
Yeah. You took my breath away with that one. That's a very good explanation. You gave me a different perspective on that. I was going to simply say, I agree to disagree. I see your point, and at the same time, I think it's fine for the simple fact that war is war. People are lost, and regardless of which side of an army you're on, you don't necessarily a bad guy. So to pay homage to any dead soldier, I don't necessarily see a problem with it. I guess I could say I could do with or without it. So
yeah,
that's this person's perspective. I don't disagree with it. I wouldn't give it a 4 out of 10 because of it. But I understand.
Well, there's a lot of Japanese soldiers that have come over to see memorials over here in the U.S. too. I've seen on documentaries, and World War II American soldiers, literally that they were at the same battle and they shook hands, hugged, cried together.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's that. I'm pretty sure if there was any, German Nazis that were even discovered to have been in the country, pretty sure it'd be a different experience if they met a World War II American soldier.
Yeah. Good point. Very good point.
And just one more little thing to throw in. There was a lot of German Nazi soldiers that were forced to fight that didn't even want to be there. So
very good point.
You can't say they're not all,
That gives credence to what I was saying. Just because you're on the army doesn't mean you're bad.
Yeah.
So here's one of the big ones that I've heard a lot, seen a lot on Facebook and everything as far as reviews. This one drives me up the wall bonkers, knuckin' futs. BM Mall 3 gives it 5 out of 10 and says, another remake of a movie which didn't need remaking.
Wow. So basically, not only is he calling it just a remake of a movie, he's saying that the first one didn't deserve to be made, and it's about one of the most important battles and the most important war that was fought in our country's history.
Yeah. Well, here's what irritates me about it.
That's pretty disrespectful in my eyes.
I think so too. But he kind of goes and completely contradicts himself and says, I suppose the millennial generation needs its own version of films which were made 40 years ago in an attempt to improve it. Okay, so does he not know this is history? Does he think the original was just a film? I'm trying to figure this out. Either way, he just contradicted himself. Why do we need a remake? Well, you just said. Okay, so first of all, this is history. This is just another medium in which to tell it, just like a textbook or a book or an interview. That's what this is to me. This is a retelling of history for the modern age. And I defy you to go out and find me 10 millennials who even know what Midway is before this movie came out. Hell, go find 10 that know what the Coral Sea is. Iwo Jima. You go find me 10 people in general who know what the hell Iwo Jima is. Okay? I think movies like this are important, vital, and I could take a remake every 20 years, 10 years. I don't care. You know what I mean?
Kids aren't
a
learning about the
retelling
Battle of
history.
Midway in school. I can tell you that. So if this is the only way they can learn about it, then I'm all for it. I mean,
Yeah.
and if they can remake The Little Mermaid, I'm all about a Midway movie being remade. So
All right. And to say that it's a remake drives me up the. This isn't a remake of a movie. It's a retelling of history.
yeah,
Nobody went and watched the 70s movie and said we should remake this. They're like, let's retell history.
yeah. Let's do a new movie on the Battle of Midway.
Yeah.
The only reason it's similar is because it's about the Battle of Midway. It's not the same movie.
That's like if we make just another World War II movie, someone can, oh God, another remake of World War II.
Yeah,
Shut up.
You got
Sit down, shut up,
Saving
and play.
Private Ryan. That's like, yeah, if somebody does another World War II movie and here we go, another Saving Private Ryan. Come on, really? You could have said that if that's the case, you could have said that when Pearl Harbor came out after Saving Private Ryan. Really, if you want to generalize it.
But this guy goes on to show more of his ignorance and how stupid he is. And I've seen this complaint a lot too. Lots of cost cutting is evident. Too much CGI. That looks fake is what he writes. All right. First of all, CGI is never going to look real completely. Maybe not anytime soon. But too much CGI.
So
let me paint a picture for you real quick. This is World War II. None of the let me rephrase that. There's one Japanese Zero in the world that still flies. How else are you going to have a bunch of Japanese Zeros in the air?
how many hundreds of millions of dollars did this movie take to make, I wonder? But this person seems to think that it would be cost effective to rebuild all those planes and have real pilots fly them.
Well,
And
which
then-
you can't do. There's
and
a
then-
reason why they don't exist anymore.
Yeah, and then what are you going to do? Actually blow up the planes and actually blow up destroyers? I mean, come on.
I was impressed with the carriers because they looked, they were historically accurate. They had the wooden decks. They were the proper old style carriers, as opposed to Pearl Harbor, where they used the Lexington down in Corpus Christi as the Hornet in that movie. And it wasn't right. It wasn't historically accurate. It was still cool. It was neat, but it wasn't right. So this movie decided to CGI it and give you history, give you realistic. And this guy's complaining about it. There's no other way you can do this.
Well,
I don't know what kind of practical effects you want for a Japanese carrier and stuff. I mean, what are you looking for here?
Well, apparently this person that made this comment's not a fan of any Marvel movies. He must not be a fan of very many action movies in general, because there's not a whole lot of them that don't use CGI.
I don't know what he's getting at here.
And
I mean, there's only one
literally,
way
the
to
further
find this.
back in time you go that the movie's covering, the further back in time you go, the more CGI it's going to have to be, just because anything else is not feasible.
Mm-hmm. Here's a good one, Joey. You'll love this one. Paul Obe gave it a 1 out of 10, and he does it with one word in his title: boring.
Okay.
And then he goes on to write, wow, it's pretty much Independence Day 2 mixed in with World War II planes and battleships, characters that go nowhere, CGI planes that operate like Star Wars spaceships, and the uniforms that are so wrinkled you will wonder when the iron was invented. Boring. How is this movie boring? Beginning to end, nonstop action, edge of your seat. Even though I knew how this battle ends, it was edge of my seat. I couldn't stop. I was like, when's this going to happen? When's it going to happen? The movie was on point. Pretty much Independence Day 2 mixed with World War II planes and battleships. It's a true story.
You know what?
What do you want?
Some of these reviews, especially ones like that one, that guy obviously just wants to be on the internet and say something. And two, that guy doesn't like military movies to begin with.
You're right. So I'm done with that guy.
There's no way. I mean, you can't you can't say that. And again, I haven't even seen this movie, but you can't say that movie's boring and be a fan of war movies. It's just not. It doesn't even make sense.
Jillian Faith, 5 out of 10. Lots of graphics and special visual effects. Marginal continuity. It was historically accurate. It was very linear. It told the events as they happen. How is it marginal continuity? Jesus Christ.
Oh.
F first, 5 out of 10. Don't waste your money. You'll like this one, Joey. Absolute garbage, just like the video game. Cheesy dialogue, bland characters.
Oh my God.
That's all I have to say. Apparently, he thinks this is based on a video game. Cheesy dialogue. Okay, well, it's the 40s. That's how they talked. And bland characters. That was the people fucking doing it.
Yeah. Jesus Christ.
3 out of 10. 1976 was better. No more accurate than the 1976 version.
It's not saying it's supposed to be. It again, it's a telling of the Battle of Midway for today. With today's technology and today's,
Exactly. I can tell you, I love both films. One is better in one way and one is better in the other way. This one is way better visually. The other one was better historically. But you can't have both in the same movie.
But it does. But the new one doesn't. It doesn't fudge history either, does it?
No, it does not fudge it. That same guy wrote, looks like a CGI festival. We've already tackled that. You're a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
Over the top violations of the laws, physics of aerodynamics. Okay, I'll give you that. There were some of those, I'm going to hit the brakes, he's going to fly right by me stuff. You can go into this understanding that some of that's going to be BS. I don't take away from the movie on that. That's the Hollywood flair they added to it.
Well, and let's be honest too. Shit like that doesn't happen in military movies anymore. Really, if it's supposed to be realistic now, if the premise is okay, like Transformers, okay, you've got the military aspect of that where you see the what was his name, Josh Duhamel, was running that whatever unit it was, and they fought alongside the Transformers. Okay, that's not a military movie. That's that doesn't happen, okay? But if you have a movie based on real events, I think it's safe to say that nowadays directors and movie producers, they go through pains to get it as accurate as possible nowadays. Mm-hmm. Compare The Lone Survivor to Rambo. This is not an 80s action flick that has a military character in it, and it's just over the top action crazy. Outside of the Expendables series, because they just don't make movies like that anymore that are just totally crazy off. Just nothing is accurate. So we're in an age right now where people are nitpicking stuff like a plane landing on a carrier in a World War II movie. So that's where we're at now. This is, in other words, we're to the point where people are bitching just a bitch.
Yeah, well, that's what this whole review's about.
Yeah.
Movie Man 6 gives it 4 out of 10, says the new movie comes across as a predictable game of Battleship.
It's a fucking battle in a real war. What do you mean it's predictable? We fucking knew what happened before. I haven't even seen the movie and I can tell you what happens.
Oh my God, dude.
Oh. This whole thing to me can be summed up with a saying that I've always remembered, and you see it all the time. You see it at work, you see it out in public, you see it in this. And the saying goes, wise men speak because they have something to say. Fools speak because they have to say something. That's what all this boils down to.
Welcome to social media. That's how I would sum up social
and
media.
Everybody, and like you said at the beginning, everybody's entitled to an opinion, and that's fine. But when it's just doing it to do it, it takes a lot of weight off out of the comment, really.
Yeah.
Some of these criticisms, in other words, to me, mean as much as somebody just saying, awesome movie, 10 out of 10.
Yeah,
their criticisms literally hold as much weight as that.
Yeah.
And it's not because they're criticisms, it's just because they're so stupid.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to give you this last one here to sum all this up. Xenocrypt gives it a 1 out of 10. and says another poor retelling of history or another insult to the brave men and women who died during this era.
I can tell you right now that guy's anti-military,
Absolutely.
and he's
And I've
using
come
reverse
across,
psychology to do it. I mean, what? How's it an insult?
I don't know. I've come across a lot of reviews that you can blatantly tell they're anti their own country. Um, this movie is put up there to tell the history and to show the courage and bravery that these men and women took. And to say that it's an insult, oh, you obviously don't understand the point of view they're coming from. You're trying to speak for a group of people you have nothing in common with. You did not serve. You are not a part of that. You could have made a movie about anything I ever did in the military, and it could be inaccurate as hell. But as long as it wasn't rude and disrespectful, I'm gonna feel pretty privileged to have that. So to speak for these men and women, I think you're an asshole and way out of line. I think it's wrong. I came out of that movie with an even more profound respect for these people and what they did. And I'm coming from a military background, and still so hard for me to imagine being those people. What they did is just phenomenal. And this movie is a great, great service to them and homage to them, and just puts them up on a bigger pedestal. So for anybody saying anything about the actual people who were there, I think you just need to sit down, shut up, and color, because you don't have a dog in this fight. How about you let them speak for themselves? Because I don't think a damn one of them is going to have a complaint about it.
Yeah, that's what I would like. That's what I would love, is to have somebody from there see this movie and let them, if they got something to pick it apart, well, guess what? They're about the only person in the room that has the right to, as far
Absolutely.
as accuracy and shit like that.
Yeah. So that being said, just overview. Midway is a fantastic roller coaster thrill ride. Even though you know how it's going to end, you're going to be on the edge of your seat. The visuals are perfect. Some of the acting, dialogue, maybe not great. I didn't like some of the accents. You know, they got to get that Jersey accent in there. It didn't land, but I don't care. That's not what I was there for. The movie was enthralling. It was wonderful, accurate, told both sides pretty well. I give it a 9.5 out of 10. Go see this movie. It's Veteran Day weekend. Go see it. And when you see a veteran, think a veteran. And I'm not talking about me, or I'm talking these World War II vets, man. If you can meet a World War II vet, you shake his
Oh
hand
man,
and you tell him thank
yeah,
you. I still do that to this day, and I've served. Those
absolutely.
people are my heroes. Um, all that being said, real quick, I just want to throw it out there. Richard Cole, co-pilot of James Doolittle, he died here this past April. He was the last Doolittle Raider to die. I just wanted to give a shout out to that man. You know, thank him for his service. I had the pleasure of meeting that wonderful man, and he's the last Doolittle Raider out there, and they're all gone now. So, if nothing else, go watch this movie to watch that Doolittle raid. It's fantastic and pays great tribute to them and Doolittle himself.
Hell yeah.
So go see the movie. I thought it was wonderful. If you got a gripe or complain about it, have a legitimate one, because you're going to piss some people off with that. So all that being said, have a wonderful day. Hope you liked the review. This is Starlord and Joey signing off.